So I'm here with Amanda Curtin, and I'm so excited that you're here with me, Amanda. And we're going to be talking about the relationship recovery program that you created, and more specifically, the Children's Bill of Rights today.
Excellent. Well, I'm happy to talk to you. It's an opportunity.
Could you tell me, because I know a lot of my clients and people who are watching this channel might be interested in knowing like how you developed the Children's Bill of Rights.
Well, I mean, it's really not, it's not coming from me. I'm just collecting from childhood experts. And it just was so clear when I started that there were certain people who had very identifiable trauma. You know, they were beaten, they were sexually abused. But there were a lot of people who would come in and say they had a pretty good family. You know, it wasn't, you know, every family has its issues. And as soon as I started asking questions like the issues that are on the Bill of Rights, like you know, when you were really scared or angry or hurt, who did you go to? What was the response? How did your parents model relationship? You know, all of these things, setting limits, how is that done? All of these very important basic things that children really need. And if you don't get it, it hurts you tremendously. And I think it's trauma when you don't get it. So I really broadened my view of what trauma was and started to put together this list of kind of what are the things that good enough parents ought to be offering their children.
It's so powerful too, because when we talk about reparenting the inner child, like if we don't have a model, right, how are we supposed to do this?
Right, right. I mean, that's what most of my clients initially say. I don't know how to be a good parent. And what's interesting to me is that even parents who really made a choice and got educated about being a good parent to their biological children still parent their inner children the way they were parented until they make a different choice and start to do it differently.
That is so true, Amanda. I see that all the time. It's an amazing phenomenon. Is it like I've got a client who is really a really good parent. I know they're a good parent. And then as soon as they have to talk to their inner child, it's like they get stuck, they feel awkward, or they're actually not parenting them, because
And not liking them, sometimes not liking them. You know, there's this sense of shame or like, you know, this comes out in the dialoguing a lot, that the parent part is not happy with the child and has bought the story that they're not good enough.
Right. They've got a narrative.
Yes.
And do you find that, because I want to ask you like what you think is like one of the most common challenges, bringing up the shame and not liking the inner child. Like, what's the piece that has to come in before that person can connect with their inner child in a healthier way?
Yeah. Well, there's so many things, but I'll just give you a couple of ideas. One is I ask people to go get pictures and go through old scrapbooks or videos, if you have it, of you as a little kid, and really start to. Most of my clients have a picture of their inner child with them often that they will look at and hold on to, because honestly, when you're in shame and the adult and the child are feeling it together, there's not a lot you can do because they're kind of colluding that we're not good enough. But if you step back, and actually at that point, there's no clear child. So when the adult chooses to step back and look at that child and realize I'm not in the shame, I'm looking at a shamed child, your heart opens. I mean, you just see that innocent little one and you realize that there's nothing wrong with them. But you have to see the child, not be the child. And that's really a lot of the work is, people think it's all about the child. It's actually about getting a healthy adult to step back and really see that child and think about the same way you would with a biological child, knowing their history. How do I help them?
Yeah, like getting that subject object shift, like stepping out and seeing that part of you as a separate part of you and being able to actually relate to that part of you.
Yeah. So for example, if all of a sudden you realize you're scared, to have the awareness to step back and say, I have a scared child with me right now that I need to parent.
Mhm.
And that really starts to solidify, because people who do this work are very heart-centered. They really want to do it right. It's just that they're so allied with their child, they haven't really separated, and the child's in the body. So, and that's much stronger than the mind. So that's why awareness doesn't heal trauma. It's a first step, but unless you go into the body, you're not going to get a deeper healing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and I know that a lot of times, when I work with clients or I'm working with other coaches, we talk about how the inner child shows up first in the body is like a body sensation or body like pain or problems. And that sometimes we don't even realize that that's the inner child showing up. And
Right.
then we see it as the enemy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that
Yeah.
no, it's not, and that doesn't work, but we don't
Yeah.
even realize that that's happening. And I was gonna actually ask you about that because not only can that happen, but also I see a lot that, the inner child shows up as also angry, not
Mhm.
trusting, or a bully, or a
Mhm.
critic, or sounding aggressive. And that can be really difficult too for people to learn to, how do I dialogue with my inner child when this is happening?
Well, part of it is that when you really take in that the child was, uh, there's nothing wrong with the child, they just didn't get what they needed. But what they had to do to survive was figure out how to shut down their insides, read the environment, and just have survival strategies, coping strategies. It could be shutting down, it could be being aggressive. But I don't see that as a negative at all. I want to say to those children, good for you for finding a way to survive something that was way too big for you and you had no power. And so, sometimes people will say to me, my inner child's a brat. And I'll say, no, they're traumatized and they learned they had to put up some defenses and come across a certain way to survive. And we're trying to figure out how to help them thrive, which is a whole different set of ways of being in the world. But I really honor whatever they did, and I never see them in a negative way. Now, clients do, they'll come in and have a lot of negative stuff to say about their kids, inner children, but once you start working with them, they begin to see it. They begin to see that and have some respect for this child and compassion for what they were up against.
Yeah, I think that the acknowledgement is so powerful. Just acknowledging that what you've been doing to like protect us and keep us safe is
Yes.
incredible. And you've been doing it by yourself.
Yes.
You've been doing it alone.
Yes.
And just that acknowledgement can be so powerful.
And they don't want us to, they can initially feel like they don't want us to run the show. They don't trust adults. They don't want to trust anybody outside. They really feel like they know what they're doing. And so when an adult starts to become stronger, that adult part, and saying, you know what, we're going to do something different that actually is healthy for us now, the child will give you a lot of pushback. And because they have the body, they can throw a lot of feeling at you. And that's when sometimes people get mad at their inner child, like, oh, I'm trying to do this really new behavior that's healthy, and my inner child is reacting. And because why should they trust us? It takes time.
Yeah, and I see this a lot, like with my clients who are coaches, and it shows up as like as soon as someone tries to start getting visible, or like you said, they're doing something new, they're up leveling. It's like the massive resistance shows up, and they don't know what to do.
Yeah. And that's where I think the inner child is saying, is anybody stronger than I am who actually has my best interest? And so that's where the adult can do some things going against. This is where you say, it's so weird to say this as a therapist, you've got to go against your gut. You've got to make some choices that your inner child doesn't, and your body is reacting negatively to, because it's the best thing. And then eventually they come along. But good parents do that all the time. They set a limit, and maybe their child goes, I hate you, you're the worst mom. And you go, yep, you were really angry at me and it's okay. But I still feel like this is what we need to do. And that's a strong parent.
Yeah, it's like that to me, I think is the trickiest part too, is how do you have boundaries with your own inner child?
Right, because they're in you. Yes.
They're in you.
It's easier when the child is outside. The one positive about having an inner child inside is that you can do new behavior, and the child has to go along with you. So if I decide I'm going to speak up to my boss, and because I've been afraid before, I can do that, even though my insides are going against it. And so it's different than having a child outside of you. But most of the time, I think it's harder to have that child inside, because their reactions are so strong and visceral.
Yes, it overtakes us. And I think that's the work, is the awareness of, when am I being overtaken by my inner child?
Yeah.
And what is my response? What do I do in that moment? Or can I even, can I recognize it in the moment it's happening? And what can I do?
And that's why I really recommend that people get very good at dialoguing, which is writing back and forth between your right and your left hand. It really is like learning the scales of a piano. If the more you do it, the more you get used to being two parts. And I don't know. I think that I would pick the dialoguing as the most important thing I teach people, because it really is. If you don't have a separate adult, you're not going to be able to heal and have the life you deserve.
Absolutely. And I think, that dialoguing with the dominant, non-dominant hand, to me, the most surprising things can come up when you're riding with that non-dominant hand,
Yes.
where you're like,
Yes.
what did this happened, And I don't know the science behind that, but is it like switching parts of the brain? I know there's something behind that.
Yes. Yes, you're touching really into the unconscious, and to a part of the brain where all the old memory and feeling is stored, which is not on a timeline, which is why it gets so confusing, because it feels like it's happening right now, but it actually is from the past. So it is, yeah, it's powerful, and people need to be beginners and have small step practice to get to a place where they can begin to really have a strong adult.
Yeah, that's a question I get a lot, is like, how long is it going to take me?
Yeah.
How long is it going to take me to get my inner adult online?
Yeah. Everybody's a little different, but I've been doing this work for 40 years. So the average that I see is, I think it takes about 3 years to do the work, especially if you're in group, because I think group is where you get the ability to do much more experiential work. You have a whole supportive community walking with you, and it's just so different than individual. People sometimes need some individual, but it's a significant, it's the most significant loss a person can suffer, is the loss of good enough childhood. So it's amazing to me we can heal it in 3 years. And the hard part, it probably would be shorter if we didn't combine it with the intimacy work, because it isn't just about healing your child. It's about learning how to be in a relationship in a totally new way.
Oh, wow. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because I think it is important to really focus on the inner child healing and not try to combine it with, like you said, with other work. I think you're right about that, because it's so deep, and it is the ultimate relationship that we want to repair, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the reason that I combine, because I think you're understanding me, but the reason that I combine the intimacy work is that trauma is a relational wound, and to be able to see that there are good enough people, and that there's a way to relate to them where you can be more real, and you can ask for what you need and get something back, is so critical. Because if we say to our inner child, you live in a different world, they have to see it. So if I say there are safe people, how do they know? And a lot of times trauma survivors are surrounded by unsafe people when they start to do the work. So the child's saying, look, the people in our life, they're not safe. And so having a group where you see that people are safe and good enough, and they're actually doing their work along with you and supporting you. And it's very powerful.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying, right? It's, you have to provide the evidence to the, like, you can't expect the inner child to just trust you and believe you all of a sudden. You know, like,
They
oh
shouldn't.
yeah, I'm gonna protect you and we're gonna have boundaries and people are safe. And it's like, no, no,
And they really have tunnel vision. Inner children have, this is a symptom of trauma. It's not to blame them at all, but when they are triggered, they can't assess the present accurately at all. And so they will only see what goes along with how it was in the past. And they'll miss all the evidence that they're in a different world. So it's really hard for them. So we have to be the ones to step back and help them see in a concrete way how this is different now.
absolutely. Yeah, and I see that a lot. It's like, well, we have to provide the evidence and we
Yeah,
have to do it consistently
yeah,
over and over a certain period of time so that the trust can be built.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's,
the repetition is critical. Yeah, especially if you're, the dialoguing is also reprogramming your brain. So, there really is that repetition, um, because we're really creating a whole new program for how to live. The program that we took in, which we didn't choose, which came from flawed people, gets cemented in. It's how our beliefs are about ourselves and others, our patterns of behavior, how we deal with feelings. We're literally changing all of that. And that's a pretty big deal. I think it's amazing you can do it in 3 years in a good enough way. Not perfect, but in a good enough way.
yeah, right. Like we have wins along the way, right? We get
Yeah.
like some kind of traction but I have to say that actually tracks with me personally as far as how long I feel like it took me to really get a handle and feel like, okay, I feel a level of healing where not only I feel it, but I see the results in my life.
Yeah.
You know, like I see the fruits of this labor and the rewards of how I'm relating to the world, how my nervous system feels every day, you know, how I'm showing up and how my life is responding to me in a different way.
That's beautiful. I mean, again, it's just so nice to have you share that personal example, because that's kind of, we're looking for people to say, this is what happens, this is what happened to me, versus just a theory. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely, right? You can't make this stuff up. I mean, one thing that I do see, I want to ask you about this. This is a common challenge I see sometimes is that when it comes time for the inner adult to hold the people in the inner child's past accountable
Yep.
for things,
Yep.
sometimes the adult self gets a little squirmy about that.
Yes, absolutely. Especially a good example would be where you have a father who was pretty brutal physically and a mom who was supposedly your safe person, but you realize in the recovery work, she didn't protect you. And so, but there people are very hesitant to get angry at mom. Poor mom, she suffered so much and she couldn't do anything about it. So one way that I get people to work with that is I have them imagine that their parents are sitting in a chair and their child is sitting in a chair. Who are you going to focus on? Are you going to say to your child, guess what? You can't really say anything bad about mom because it's going to hurt her. So keep all that stuff inside of you. People don't do that when they actually have that choice. But you have to make it real. You have to make it really clear that you can't have it both ways. You can't protect mom and heal your child.
You have to choose your inner child every time.
Yeah, you got to choose your child, but it is, if you're not connected to that child, it's more a concept, so it's easier to say, oh, poor mom, but you wouldn't say that to a real child. You wouldn't say it's not okay to get angry, mom just abandoned you and you have to just pretend it's okay.
Yes, and I know sometimes like as adults we just want to rationalize. We want to say, well, she had her own trauma and she had these problems and that problems.
Yeah,
And I know that inner children don't care what the problem was. And
They actually, well, what I tell clients, two things can be true at once. Our parents were traumatized, they didn't get what they needed, and they were responsible for what they did. And what happens when people let go of protecting their parents and they really do the deep work, and they start to heal, their heart opens for their parents. It's not a head thing anymore. It's not like I have to choose to forgive them, which is kind of a spiritual bypass in a way and an emotional bypass, but they're actually feeling better about themselves and they're feeling like they're healing. And then you feel like, oh, my poor parents who didn't get that, So I don't think forgiveness is a choice as much as it's a result of the work that people end up forgiving. I don't say they have to, but I just watch it over and over again. And it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
It does, it happens naturally.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. I mean, it seems like there's sort of a sentiment in certain communities that you're just trying to go straight to forgiveness.
Yep.
And it is a bypass, and it's because we're uncomfortable with anger.
Yeah.
And we're uncomfortable with expressing anger, and we, maybe don't want to acknowledge the victimhood of our inner children, because well, don't be a victim. Well, but your children are powerless.
Yes.
We have to acknowledge that, right?
And I think the other part of that is that where people have seen anger in such destructive ways, in this work, I think we reclaim things. Anything can be used in a healthy or an unhealthy way. Anger's the same way. And the anger that we're expressing, we're doing experientially. I would never yell at another person or, berate them. We do it experientially in an empty chair with a picture of a parent so that we don't become perpetrators. It goes with our value system. And that's so important.
Yeah, that's a big distinction. And it's true that if we witnessed unhealthy, explosive, violent anger as children, of course, either we end up modeling that, or we are like, no, anger is not safe. I'm not going to let myself feel angry.
Yeah, I've had clients who at age 5, I just said, I will never get angry. And, that's just, then they're not in their bodies. And anger helps us know when something isn't right. We need that. It's a messenger to pay attention to.
Yes, it's a powerful energy that can elevate us above like hopelessness, despair, it's actually, it is powerful. And I think the question just for people is like, how do I get, you have to get into the anger, but how do I get past the anger and into this like more acceptance and feeling hopeful? And I think it comes back to it. Do you agree with it? It's like, it is organic and you can't force your way through the process.
No, I think when you find tools and situations where you're able to go back and do some of this experiential work, trying to figure out how to trigger back to it. Once you start to have the feelings, they release. And I would say the one exception, it's not even an exception, but I tell clients when they're doing rage work, you might feel really amazing. I've had people come back, people who have been so angry their whole lives, who do rage work and they go, I feel lighter than I've ever felt in my life. I've also had people do rage work and say, oh my God, there is so much rage. And that just means they have to do more. And as they do more, they start to get the lightness, because we're here to release these feelings, not to carry that well of pain from childhood in our bodies.
Yes, I think we're not here to suffer.
No.
We're here to enjoy life and to feel joy and to be free.
Yes.
To me, and I don't know what you think about this, but I feel like this work is literally like healing the world. If if everyone could do it, can you imagine what the world would be like?
Well, to me, it is political work. It is about healing the world, because what trauma does is it shuts us off from each other. And we have these patterns of behavior that are defensive and fear-based and shame-based. And if you can heal that and have people in touch with their hearts, we're going to have a beautiful world.
Yeah, and I think, is that the paradigm shift right there?
Yeah, I think that
moving
is.
from that way of being into this new way of being in the world and with each other.
Yes, yes. It's kind of the group I see as almost a mini world where people come in with these wounded hearts and also a lot of disappointment around relationship, a lot of feeling alone, feeling misunderstood. And so by having the experience in the group, they start to see what it would have been like to be in a good enough family. And that's such a positive thing.
Oh, wow. Yes, absolutely. Amanda, thank you so much for the work that you do. I know that you're doing some programs and training therapists. And is there a way for people to get in touch with you? Do you have a website or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm working on a website.
Oh,
I have one, but it's not the best one. I think the best thing to do would be to email me.
okay.
Um,
We'll put your email address in the description of the video.
yeah,
We'll
that'd
do
be
that.
great.
If you want to reach out to Amanda, email her.
Sure, that would be great. Well, I'm so happy that you do the work that you do. You so clearly are meant to be doing it and bringing so much healing to the world. So it's been lovely to talk to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Amanda. You know what? It's one of those things I had no idea this was going to happen to me, but now that it has, it's absolutely my passion and my purpose. So
And
thank you.
just living that is probably inspiring all the people you work with. So that's so great.
Oh, yes. Thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it.
Nice to talk to you.
You too.
Bye-bye.